Hey Jordan, how you doing? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. I was reading your writing. Now, this makes a lot of sense that you're concerned about um, gender, and I agree. Jordan Thomas could be male or female. So, in that regard, I think that I completely understand your reasoning here. Completely. Thank you very much for including that. That's relevant. Let's go ahead and jump to the work. I just have a couple of suggestions. Um, so the problem that I think is apparent with the logo is the basic size and configuration. So you take look at the size of the logo. I mean, anywhere you place this, you really need a lot of area for the logo, and that's not always the best thing, the best situation. I think it points to the situation where this mark itself is far too large in relationship to the size of the type. Now, there's a couple of things we can do to really make this more versatile. And what I would recommend is this little line drawing of the rows. It won't work in a logo, and the reason why is see all these little converging lines. They will not reproduce well in print, and we can even kind of mimic that a little bit right here. Plus the fact that they're just going to fall apart. They don't have the visual weight uh, to create the kind of consistency with the name. So therefore, when we zoom out, the name is still visible, right? But the logo is starting to fall apart, the mark itself. Here, it's barely visible at all, while we can still read your name. So that's a concern, and that points to spatial relationships. So that fact, in conjunction with the size and the sheer amount of area the logo will take up in any application or any situation where you place it. I think there's a couple of things we can do. I don't recommend this big box behind the logo, and I would reduce the size. I would now. I understand that you want to preserve the expeditious understanding of gender here with the femininity of the flower. And I get that. But what I would recommend is this. I would recommend trying to create something that alludes to a flower without this like kind of really fine detailed line drawing. Let me show you an example. This is the example that I would like to use. So note the relationship of the mark to the name. It's not that big to where it creates this kind of unusual tension between this is really large and this is not. So we don't have that kind of tension. So I think this is a good relationship. I think this configuration is also very, very versatile. A couple of things you can do with this. I mean, if you need to stack your logo, these are called lockups, and there's different versions of the logo that you can use for different applications or different requirements for placement. So a stacked logo would take the mark and just put it right above here. Okay, so, but given that the spatial relationships are equitable, right? And right now, my recommendation is this, is I would try to come up with an illustration that indicates the femininity of the flower, but not this like fine line illustration with all these fine little converging lines. Try to simplify this, still indicating the femininity of a flower, but not with all these fine details and this little fine line work. At that point, I would say, instead of placing it above the logo, that could be a variation, but watch your size relationships. Look at my cursor. I would say something about that big for a stacked logo. And then the main logo, I would say, would probably be most versatile, placing the mark over here, Jordan Thomas. And then I just spoke of lockups, right? A lockup is a different version of the logo based on whatever the need is. So you could have 3 different lockups of this logo. The mark itself and the word mark and the logo mark will remain the same. But for example, in one of your lockups, you would have, okay, Jordan Thomas, graphic design. Okay. So, and I wouldn't stack that. I would just present it on one line. Try using a sans serif. It'll point a little bit more to a contemporary, more of a modern contemporary approach as opposed to this kind of old school traditional serif. So try a sans serif typeface. So Jordan Thomas, one of your logos would say graphic design. I would right align the graphic design with Thomas, mark over here, Jordan Thomas, graphic design. Another lockup, Jordan Thomas, photography. Another lockup, Jordan Thomas, web design. That way you can place your logo to the resume, the letterhead, cover letter, etc., based on the job that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a photography job, you could use the lockup for photography. If you're applying for a graphic design job, well, photography isn't relevant, so you would just use a lockup that says graphic design. Okay, follow me? And then, of course, the wonderful thing about this configuration is that you can easily transpose it to a stacked logo by just taking the mark and moving it right up there. Okay, so those are my recommendations. That's it. And go ahead, keep working, Jordan. We're getting there, definitely getting there. So keep working, and go ahead and feel free to run your next iteration by me. I'll be more than glad to make comments. All right, great. Thank you very much, Jordan.